Under the twin suns of Valera, the royal palace shimmered like glass frozen in time. The air was heavy with whispers, tension, and the metallic scent of dying flowers that once bloomed for centuries. The empire was collapsing, cities dimming one by one, energy cores failing, children born weaker each year. The royal bloodline, once a symbol of eternal life, was thinning into extinction. And at the center of it all stood Princess Elira, her face calm but hollow, her golden skin marked with the pale glow of sterility. She had been declared infertile by the High Council, her body incapable of carrying life, her womb a political disaster. Yet even in her shame, she stood regal, her silver hair cascading like a silent rebellion against fate. Outside the grand hall, human envoys waited, soldiers, diplomats, and one man who didn't belong among them. Commander Nathaniel Reed, a decorated officer of the Terran fleet, carried no noble lineage, no genetic enhancements. He was, as the Valerans called him, organic, born of chance and struggle. But humanity had something Valera no longer possessed: fertility, vitality, the power to create life without genetic engineering. And that made him valuable. When the great bronze doors opened, the air shifted. The alien courtiers bowed low, their bioluminescent robes pulsing faintly, as Elira stepped forward. She was fragile and perfect, a living sculpture of sorrow. Nathaniel met her gaze and saw, beneath the serenity, a fracture, a kind of quiet despair that mirrored his own. Commander Reed. The Queen's voice cut through the silence. Her tone was smooth as glass but carried the weight of centuries. Your leaders have agreed. The treaty will be sealed in blood and union. My daughter shall become your wife. Nathaniel's jaw tensed. He had trained for war, not this. The thought of being offered a woman as part of a dying empire's bargain made something in him twist. But he also knew what the treaty meant. Valera's technology could save Earth's atmosphere, and Earth's genetics could save Valera's species. Marriage was just the tool. He bowed stiffly. I understand, Your Majesty. The Queen studied him with eyes that glowed faintly blue. You do not, but you will. Elira spoke then, her voice quiet but edged. I do not consent. The room fell still. Her defiance was shocking. The alien advisors shifted uneasily, their translucent skin flickering with agitation. The Queen did not turn toward her daughter. You will, she said simply, because your body may be barren, but your duty is not. That night, the ceremony was held in the Hall of Mirrors. The two moons rose high, casting reflections that made the air shimmer. Elira stood beside Nathaniel, wrapped in silver robes woven with living threads that responded to her heartbeat. He stood in human uniform, stoic, his expression unreadable. The vows were exchanged in two languages, one human, one alien, both hollow. When their palms were joined, a surge of bioluminescent energy flared briefly between their skins, making the courtiers gasp. It wasn't supposed to happen. The connection field was a ceremonial illusion, not a real reaction. Yet for a heartbeat, their bond was alive. Later, in the silent quarters assigned to them, Elira sat by the window, staring at the collapsing skyline of her world. Nathaniel removed his gloves, his hands rough, scarred, human. I didn't ask for this either, he said quietly. She didn't look at him. Then why didn't you refuse? Because your people would rather die than admit they need us, he said. And my people would rather save themselves than admit they care. A flicker of emotion crossed her eyes. Pain, perhaps understanding. You think this is mercy? She whispered. They have made me a symbol, a barren womb chained to a fertile race. You are not my husband. You are my punishment. Nathaniel said nothing. He turned away, staring at the strange architecture around them, veins of light pulsing through the walls like a dying heartbeat. Somewhere deep beneath the palace, ancient machines hummed, a reminder that Valera's core was failing. Days passed. The humans were granted access to the genetic sanctum, a vast laboratory built from living crystal. The Valerans watched the humans with both awe and disgust. They were raw, inefficient, emotional. But Nathaniel's presence began to stir something else. A quiet curiosity among the alien scientists, a reminder of the imperfection they had long erased from themselves. One evening, as Elira attended a council meeting beside her mother, a strange pulse shook the chamber. The walls trembled, light patterns distorted. The queen froze, her eyes narrowing. What was that? Energy fluctuation, Majesty. One of the aides stammered. Localized within the royal quarters, biometric resonance detected. Elira's gaze darted to Nathaniel. He was standing near the observation window, unaware of the chaos he'd caused. The queen's expression hardened. Bring me the readings. The data arrived moments later, impossible, blasphemous readings. When Elira and Nathaniel had touched during the ceremony, their genetic fields had synchronized at a level no Valerian had ever achieved. The queen dismissed the room, her composure cracking for the first time in centuries. Alone, she replayed the sensor data over and over until her glowing hands began to tremble. That night, she visited the newlyweds' quarters unannounced. Elira was asleep, her breathing shallow. Nathaniel was awake, sitting in silence, studying the alien stars outside. You don't sleep? The queen asked softly. He turned, startled. Your Majesty. She raised a hand. Do you know what you've done, human? I married your daughter, he said bitterly. No, she whispered. You changed something I cannot name. She moved closer, her eyes scanning him as if reading invisible energy. Our people have long forgotten the pulse of creation. We cloned, engineered, replicated until life itself forgot how to begin. But when you touched her, something ancient answered. I saw it. I felt it in the core of the palace. It remembered. Nathaniel frowned. Remembered what? The beginning, the queen breathed. The first spark that made us alive. She looked down at her sleeping daughter, her expression unreadable. If the council learns of this, they will destroy her. They fear change more than extinction. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Then why are you telling me? Because you must decide what you will do with what you've awakened. Before he could respond, the ground trembled. The palace lights flickered, dimmed, then flared bright white. Alarms rang through the corridors. A low, rumbling hum echoed from beneath the city, as though the planet itself were breathing for the first time in ages. The queen's eyes widened, reflecting pure terror. She whispered, almost to herself, It's responding again. Nathaniel rushed to the window and froze. In the distant horizon, the ancient spires of Valera's core city began to glow in spiraling patterns, light rising toward the sky in a rhythm like a heartbeat. He turned back to the queen, but she was already gone, moving swiftly toward the chamber doors. Elira stirred awake, confused by the noise. What's happening? She murmured. Nathaniel looked at her, his pulse racing. I don't know, he said. But even as he spoke, the lights around them pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. The walls seemed alive, whispering in tones he couldn't understand. And then, from the deepest part of the palace, a voice that wasn't human or alien spoke a single word that made the air itself tremble. Said her name. The palace corridors were carved from living crystal that pulsed faintly with the rhythm of the planet's core, and yet Nathaniel had never felt more alien. Every sound seemed deliberate, every movement calculated. The Valerans spoke with a kind of musical detachment, their gestures graceful but devoid of warmth. He had spent years among soldiers, diplomats, and scientists, but never among beings who seemed to have erased emotion from their very DNA. They treated him with cautious curiosity, the way one might study a dangerous artifact that could either heal or destroy. Days after the union, he still couldn't read Elira. She barely spoke. When she did, her voice carried the stillness of deep water, serene but cold. She had been trained her entire life to hide weakness, to wear grace as armor. But Nathaniel had seen something in her eyes during their first night together. Pain, not defiance. He had grown up in the ruins of Earth's third reclamation war. He knew the look of someone who had lost everything. At dinner, they sat at a table designed for ceremony, not intimacy. Servants glided silently, presenting nutrient spheres that shimmered with faint light. Elira didn't eat. She simply pressed a finger to one of the glowing spheres, absorbing energy through her skin. Nathaniel watched, fascinated and a little uneasy. "Does it taste like anything?" he asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't look up. "Taste is inefficient," she replied. He smiled faintly. "On Earth, taste is half the reason people bother to live." That made her glance up, just briefly. "You consume chaos for pleasure. We abandoned that long ago. Maybe that's why your world's dying," he muttered under his breath. She heard it. The silence that followed was sharper than any argument. The next morning, the Queen summoned him to the observatory, a vast dome overlooking the planet's shrinking oceans. She stood by the glass, her robes flickering with faint blue light. "My daughter has not accepted this union," she said without turning. "I can tell," he said. "You will not speak to me with insolence," she warned. "But understand this, human, her acceptance is not optional. The treaty binds your two species. If she rejects you, this alliance dies, and so will she." Nathaniel folded his arms. "You think forcing her makes this a partnership?" The Queen turned then, her gaze colder than the stars outside. "Our survival is not built on sentiment. It is built on necessity." He stared back at her, unflinching. "Then you're already dead." Later that night, he found Elira standing in the reflection garden, surrounded by trees made of glass. Their roots glowed with faint blue veins, feeding from the dying soil. She was watching the sky, her posture straight but heavy. "I spoke with your mother," he said quietly. "She's worried about you." Elira's laugh was brittle. "She worries about appearances, not me. The council watches every move she makes. If I falter, they'll call for dissolution. A queen who cannot preserve her bloodline is unfit to rule." Nathaniel stepped closer. "You think this union will change that?" She turned sharply toward him. "You think I don't know what they're doing? They hope your presence will make me a symbol, proof that the royal line can adapt. They will use me until the illusion fades, and when it does, they will erase both of us." He exhaled slowly. "Then maybe we stop pretending it's just a treaty." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give them a reason to believe," he said. "Not politics, not data, something real." She looked at him as if he were speaking a language she had forgotten. "Real," she repeated softly, as though testing the word on her tongue. "You think reality still exists here?" He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "I think it's waiting for you to remember it." For the first time, she didn't pull away. The silence between them softened. Outside, the twin suns dimmed beneath the horizon, and the palace lights shifted to the gentle pulse of nocturnal energy. Elira reached out to touch one of the glass trees. "My mother told me once that our world was born from light and pain," she whispered. "We learned to control the light, but we never learned to survive the pain." Nathaniel watched her hand tremble slightly. "Maybe that's why you need us," he said. She turned to him then, and there was something new in her eyes. Curiosity, maybe even fear. "You speak of need as if it's a virtue. It's the only reason life keeps moving forward," he said. "We need, we reach, we try again." Elira took a small step closer, studying him. "Your people are strange. You cling to hope as if it were oxygen." He smiled faintly. "Maybe it is." The days that followed blurred between duty and uneasy companionship. They attended council meetings together, inspected the energy reactors, visited the dying outer cities. Nathaniel saw the truth of Valera's decline. Its people had traded emotion for endurance, passion for control. But in doing so, they had hollowed out their soul. Everywhere he went, he felt eyes on him. Some fearful, some reverent, some hateful. One evening, Elira collapsed during a diplomatic session. The healers rushed her to the biostasis chamber, their faces unreadable. Nathaniel followed, ignoring protocol. The healers surrounded her with light, their hands weaving patterns in the air. But nothing worked. The biolights on her skin flickered weakly, fading like embers. "What's happening?" Nathaniel demanded. "She is draining," one of the healers said. The energy resonance is failing. Her core cannot stabilize. He didn't understand their technology, but instinct took over. He knelt beside her, took her hand, skin cool, trembling. The healers shouted for him to step back, but as soon as his skin touched hers, the chamber's lights flared. The energy field surged, stabilizing instantly. The readings spiked so high the instruments failed to record them. Elira gasped, her eyes snapping open, light pouring from her pupils. The healers froze in awe and terror. "Impossible," one whispered. The resonance responded to him. The queen arrived moments later, her expression unreadable. She looked from her daughter to Nathaniel, her eyes wide. "It's happening again," she said softly. "The human connection." Elira sat up weakly, her voice trembling. "What does it mean?" The queen didn't answer. She was staring at the monitors, at the rhythmic pulses that mirrored Nathaniel's heartbeat exactly. "It means," she whispered, "that your bond is rewriting the laws that keep us alive." The chamber lights dimmed suddenly, every surface humming with low vibration. The ground beneath them shuddered. A strange sound rippled through the air, soft, ancient, almost like singing. The healers backed away, terrified. From the depths of the palace, a beam of blue light erupted upward, piercing the ceiling of the spire. Elira's eyes widened in terror. "That's the core," she said. "It's never reacted before." Nathaniel turned toward the light, shielding his eyes. The queen's voice broke through the noise. "Whatever you've awakened, Commander, you may not be able to stop it." The chamber cracked with another surge of light, and this time the sound that followed was not mechanical but alive. Called Elira's name. The alien queen sat motionless in her observation chamber, her many eyes reflecting the pale glow of the planetary lattice as it pulsed through the window like veins of light. The readings on the console flickered in patterns she had never seen before, frequencies bending around the human, reshaping the biofield that sustained her entire empire. She had thought humans primitive, temporary creatures, fire and flesh bound by gravity. But this one, the officer her daughter had been forced to marry, was changing the planet itself just by standing on it. Her claws tightened around the edge of the console as the energy graph flared again. The distortion began the moment he touched the princess. Below the citadel, in the royal quarters, the princess sat on the edge of her bed, her breathing shallow as she stared at her reflection. The alien symbols across her skin glowed faintly, responding to the unseen force pulsing from the human's presence in the next room. She had spent her life being told she was barren, her genes sterile from the decay of their dying lineage. Yet when he spoke, something in her body remembered an ancient rhythm she couldn't explain. Terrified her. She didn't want to need him, didn't even want to look at him, but she could feel her pulse sinking to his heartbeat, as if her body recognized something her mind refused to admit. In the observatory above, the queen activated the memory wells, replaying moments from the past week. In each frame, the human's movements distorted the air slightly, bending the lattice that connected all living beings on their world. He didn't seem to notice. He laughed, worked, breathed, unaware that the planet itself was listening. The queen leaned closer, her whisper trembling through the chamber. "What are you?" That same night, the humans sat by the window of their chamber, watching the alien sky ripple with green and violet streams. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes on him, the strange hum that seemed to vibrate through the palace walls. The princess stood behind him, silent. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "You don't belong here." "I know," he said softly. "But neither do you anymore." Something in her expression faltered. She wanted to strike him, to deny the truth, but the air between them shimmered faintly. The glow of her markings dimmed and flared again, pulsing in rhythm with his breathing. The lattice outside flickered, and in the queen's observatory, every alarm sounded at once. Guards rushed in, confused by the readings. "Your Majesty, the planetary core just shifted," one of them said, eyes wide. The biofield resonance dropped to human frequencies. The queen turned sharply. "Impossible. The lattice predates human evolution." But even as she said it, she could see the data stabilizing around him. She dismissed the guards and sealed the chamber, her mind racing. The prophecy etched into the temple walls came back to her. When the barren light meets mortal flame, the blood of both shall rewrite the lattice. The next morning, the princess found her mother waiting in the throne chamber. "You've been watching us," she said quietly. The queen didn't deny it. "Tell me what you feel when he touches you." The princess's breath caught. Pain, confusion, heat. Not disgust. Not anymore. The queen's expression turned to something between fear and awe. "He is not your husband anymore. He is the key to something we do not understand. And if the council discovers what I've seen, they will kill him, and perhaps you with him." Before the princess could respond, the chamber lights flickered. A deep tremor rolled through the ground, vibrating through the queen's throne. The holographic map of the planet shimmered and twisted. The lattice was collapsing at its northern pole. The distortion pulsed in a heartbeat rhythm that matched his. The queen's breath hitched. "It's happening again," she whispered. "What's happening?" the princess asked, grabbing her arm. The queen looked up slowly, her voice almost trembling. "This is not the first time a human has done this." And as the palace shook again, the queen's gaze turned to the human's image flickering on the monitor. Standing in the courtyard, surrounded by waves of energy spiraling out from him like a living storm, while the planetary sensors screamed in warning. He found her in the garden where the light always seemed too bright to be real, kneeling by the crystal roots that pulsed like living veins beneath the soil. The air around her shimmered, reacting to her touch. He had seen that before. The strange pulse that followed her hands, the hum that made his chest tighten. But this time he wasn't watching as a soldier or a husband. He was watching as a man who had just read the classified files the queen thought she'd buried. Files about her daughter. Files that weren't supposed to exist. He stood in silence for a moment before saying her name. She turned, her eyes dim and distant, the markings on her skin faintly flickering in rhythm with the roots around her. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured. "I found something," he said quietly. "About you." Her expression barely changed, but her hands froze. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, his voice lower now. "Your infertility. It wasn't caused by your biology. It was done to you." She didn't speak. Her breathing stopped altogether. The hum in the air faltered, then surged back like a heartbeat. "You're lying." "I wish I were." He took a cautious step forward. "It's in the Royal Archives, records of genetic suppression protocols. Your mother ordered it when you were a child. They modified your blood to ensure you couldn't reproduce, because your bloodline carries something the council fears." Her face went pale, her pupils narrowing to slits. "My own mother," she whispered. The roots beneath her hands flared with light, their rhythm breaking. "Why?" He crouched beside her, voice soft. "Because your blood reacts to the lattice. It's not just symbolic, it's biological. You're connected to the planet in a way no one else is. If your blood mixed with something outside their genome..." He stopped himself. "They feared it would change everything." She backed away as if his words were poison. "They said I was weak," she whispered. "Defective. They said my line was dying. They lied." He looked down at the data crystal in his hand, the one he had stolen from the archive. The queen's voice echoed faintly from the recording. "If she ever conceives, the lattice will rewrite itself. We will lose control of the field." The princess trembled. "So I was never sick. I was silenced." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, her markings flaring brighter. "You don't understand what that means for us," she said. "If the council learns what you found, they'll destroy both of us. My blood, your DNA, together they could ignite the lattice itself. It's forbidden for a reason." He looked at her, calm but unyielding. "You think I care about their reasons?" She turned away, her voice breaking. "You should, because I can feel it happening already. Every time you're near me, the lattice shifts. The planet listens. It knows." He frowned. "You mean the planet is alive?" She shook her head slowly. "Not alive. A memory. It remembers every life it sustains. My people learn to control it, but your presence, your blood, wakes something ancient inside it." He stepped closer again, lowering his voice to a whisper. Then maybe it's not the planet that's remembering. Maybe it's you. Her eyes met his, wide and shimmering, as if something in her was suddenly breaking open. You shouldn't have come here, she whispered again, but her voice had lost its conviction. You shouldn't have known. I had to, he said, because they're coming for us. Before she could ask what he meant, a deep rumble echoed through the ground. The garden's crystal roots shuddered violently. The light from the sky dimmed to a dull red. She clutched the soil. No. They're activating the field. He pulled her to her feet. What does that mean? It means, she said breathlessly, they're going to erase the evidence, me. The sound grew louder, an eerie resonance building through the palace walls, through her body, through his. She gasped as blood trickled from her nose, glowing faintly blue. He caught her before she fell, staring in shock as her blood flickered with energy. The lattice above them responded instantly, the clouds splitting open to reveal veins of light racing across the sky. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly the same color as her blood. It's too late, she whispered. The planet knows who I am now. And before he could ask what that meant, the ground beneath them fractured with a blinding flash, and everything went silent. The palace trembled long after the light had faded, leaving behind a silence that felt alive. Dust drifted like ash through the ruined corridors, settling on shattered crystal and broken sigils. He woke with the taste of metal in his mouth, and the princess's body sprawled across his chest. She was breathing faint, but steady. Around them, the roots of the lattice still pulsed dimly, like veins beneath wounded skin. Somewhere deep below, something was humming. A low, resonant sound that didn't belong to wind or machinery. It was old, so old it felt like the planet's memory had just started speaking again. He carried her through the wreckage toward the lower chambers, following the hum. Every step made the floor thrum beneath his boots. The corridors seemed to shift, forming new passages where none had existed before. This isn't the palace anymore, he muttered under his breath. It's changing. When she stirred, her eyes were glowing faintly again. It's calling you, she said weakly. He looked down at her. What is? The core, she whispered. The planet's mind has been silent for centuries, but it knows you're here. He frowned. You make it sound alive. It's more than alive, she said, her voice trembling. It was the first intelligence my people ever met. We built our empire around it, but we lost control. That's why the lattice was made, to cage it. They reached a massive circular chamber at the bottom of the palace, where the air vibrated like a deep breath. In the center stood an ancient monolith covered in glyphs that moved like fluid metal. He laid her down gently, his eyes fixed on the monolith. This is it. She nodded weakly. The whispering core. He took a cautious step closer, and the glyphs shifted instantly, forming symbols that looked startlingly familiar. Letters. English letters. He froze. How? The core's surface rippled like water, and a voice echoed inside his skull. Human signature detected. Cross-resonance confirmed. He stumbled back. It's speaking. Inside my head. The princess gasped, her hand clutching his arm. It recognizes you. The voice deepened, vibrating through the floor. Genetic resonance. Compatible with seed protocol. Unlocking historical chain. The walls came alive. Holographic streams of data burst around them. Images of the ancient sky, alien ships orbiting a newborn world, and then humans. Early humans, their DNA being mapped by luminous alien beings. The princess stared, horrified. No, that can't be real. He watched in stunned silence. It's saying we were connected before. Your kind, and mine. The core's voice thundered through the chamber. The covenant was broken. The lattice imprisoned the source. Restoration requires hybrid key. She looked at him, realization dawning in her eyes. Hybrid key. He met her gaze. It means us. Her hands trembled. No, that's impossible. You're saying we were meant to. The union was foretold. The core interrupted, its light intensifying. Human pattern stabilizes lattice corruption. Princess genetic code restores synthesis. Her pulse quickened. They made me infertile to stop this, she whispered. They feared this exact awakening. The core's light dimmed briefly, then flared brighter than before. Warning: suppression code detected in royal genome. Eradication protocol initiated. She screamed as energy lanced from the monolith into her chest. He lunged forward, grabbing her, trying to pull her away, but her skin was glowing like molten silver. The core spoke again, its tone now urgent. Human, sustain link, or she will collapse. He didn't think. He just reached out and pressed his hand to the core. The instant his skin touched it, pain exploded through his body. His vision filled with images, her memories, her childhood, her mother's fear, the experiments, the silencing. The pain merged with her own, their minds momentarily overlapping until he could hear her thoughts whispering his name. And then, everything stopped. The core's light dimmed to a steady pulse. Her body slumped in his arms, unconscious but alive. The voice softened, almost reverent now. Synthesis achieved. The union has begun. He stared at her, heart pounding. What did you do? The cycle has turned, it whispered. Prepare for the awakening. The chamber trembled once more, but this time the sound wasn't mechanical. It was organic. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat. The ground itself felt alive. He looked toward the ceiling, where cracks of light began spreading upward through the palace. And in the faint glow, the core's final whisper echoed in his mind. The queen is coming. The nights had grown strange since the awakening. The palace glowed faintly even in darkness, its lattice veins pulsing like something alive beneath the stone. The human felt it most when he slept, voices whispering through his dreams, fragments of language he didn't understand, calling him by a name that wasn't his. The core had gone silent since that day, but its echo lingered in every breath of air. And the princess, she was changing. He noticed it first when she began to glow again, not from the lattice field or the planet's hum, but from within. Her skin shimmered faintly beneath the light, not with power, but warmth. When he touched her hand, it felt alive in a new way, like the pulse beneath her skin was no longer just hers. One evening, he found her standing on the balcony overlooking the crystal plains, her back to him, her hands clasped protectively over her abdomen. She didn't turn when she heard his footsteps. It's happening, she whispered. He stopped. What is? She turned to face him slowly. Her eyes were bright, her expression uncertain. Life. He froze. That's not possible. You said. I know what I said. She interrupted, her voice trembling. I know what they told me, but I can feel it here. She pressed her hand against her stomach, her voice breaking between disbelief and wonder. Something is growing inside me, something that shouldn't exist. He moved closer, searching her face for a trace of doubt. Could it be a side effect of what happened with the core? She shook her head slowly. No, the core didn't give me life. It restored what was stolen. The truth hung between them, fragile and immense. He reached out, resting his hand gently on hers. There it was again, that hum, the faint vibration that seemed to travel through both of them. It wasn't the lattice this time. It was something else. But before he could speak, alarms echoed through the palace. Guards shouted in the distance, their voices sharp with panic. She turned toward the sound, her expression hardening. They know, she said. He grabbed her arm. Who? The council. My mother. They must have felt the shift in the field. The core awakened a pattern they cannot explain. They ran through the hallways, the once beautiful corridors now glowing red with warning lights. He followed her to the inner sanctum, the one place even the queen's guards feared to enter. The doors opened with a hiss, revealing the great chamber of the blood thrones. At its center stood a holographic projection of the queen herself, her face cold and unreadable. So, the queen's voice boomed, echoing through the chamber. It's true. The princess stepped forward, trembling but defiant. You knew this day would come. The queen's gaze shifted between her daughter and the human. "You were never meant to survive the union," she said, her tone low, almost sorrowful. "And yet you persist. You've done what no one should have been able to do." The human met her eyes. "You lied to her. You made her believe she was broken." The queen's eyes flickered. "I protected her. You don't understand what you've unleashed. That life inside her, it's not a child. It's a key." The princess stepped closer. "A key to what?" "To the planet itself," the queen said. "The core's design was never dormant. It was waiting. Your pregnancy has activated the resonance. The lattice is shifting, realigning toward something it was never meant to reach. If that life comes to term, this world will no longer belong to us. It will belong to it." The princess's voice hardened. "Then maybe it's time it did." The queen's expression cracked for the first time. "You don't understand what it will cost." But the air around them was already vibrating. The lattice's hum filled the chamber, growing stronger by the second. Light streamed through the ceiling, wrapping around the princess like a halo. Her skin shimmered brighter, and the pulse beneath her hand quickened. The queen looked horrified. "It's feeding on the lattice." The human stepped in front of her, shielding her instinctively. "Then stop trying to control it," he said. "Let it live." The queen's projection flickered violently. "You think this is life? It's the convergence of two incompatible forces. If it grows, it will rewrite everything. The lattice, our history, our kind." The princess's voice was calm, almost serene. "Maybe that's the point." The queen vanished, the projection collapsing in a flash of light. The alarms stopped. The silence that followed felt impossibly deep. Then, the lattice began to pulse again. But this time, it beat in rhythm with the princess's heart. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Do you feel it?" He nodded. "It's everywhere." Her gaze drifted toward the sky as if listening to something distant. "The planet is whispering again," she said softly. "It's calling the core." He frowned. "What does it want?" Her expression changed, half awe, half terror. "It's asking me to choose." "Choose what?" he asked. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly. "Whether this new life belongs to us or to the world." And before he could speak again, the palace lights flared white, blinding and pure, as a voice, ancient and gentle, echoed through every mind on the planet. "The hybrid heart awakens." The queen had not slept in 3 days. The palace was no longer quiet. It breathed. Every corridor pulsed with the same rhythm that haunted her dreams. The lattice, once the perfect harmony of her empire's control, now carried an alien pulse, a heartbeat that did not belong to her kind. From the highest spire, she could see the world's sky trembling with faint streams of light, like veins awakening beneath translucent skin. She knew what it meant. The union had already begun. In the great chamber of her ancestors, she stood before the orb of memory. It glowed faintly, showing ghost-like reflections of her daughter and the human, their forms intertwined in the core's light. "How could this happen?" she whispered. "When we severed all links to the first covenant." The chamber responded with silence, until the floor began to hum. The orb brightened, and a voice spoke, not from technology but from within her mind. "Because your blood remembers." She stumbled back, clutching her chest. "No," she gasped. "The core was sealed. It cannot." "You sealed your understanding, not your origin," the voice said gently. "You cut away your past, but life remembers its beginning." The queen's breath caught as the orb split open, revealing visions from a time older than her empire. She saw the first of her kind, fragile, luminous beings standing beside humans beneath a younger sun. They worked together, shaping the lattice from pure will, weaving energy into life itself. Humanity and her ancestors had once shared a single purpose, a single essence. The queen whispered, "No one ever told this story." "You buried it," the voice replied. "You feared the mirror that humanity held, their chaos, their will to change. But they were not your weakness. They were your other half." Her knees weakened. She gripped the edge of the dais. "That can't be true. We evolved from the source." Humanity was primitive. The orb flared again, and she saw the impossible. Humans touching the core, guiding its energy. Their hands shaping the lattice that gave birth to her world. The energy that her people called divine had once flowed through both species. Humanity was not separate from the source. Humanity was the source's echo. Tears welled in her eyes as the realization struck. We cut them away, and in doing so, we cut away ourselves. Then the orb shifted again, showing her daughter lying in the temple chamber, the human at her side. A faint glow pulsed between them, synchronizing with the heartbeat of the planet. The unborn life within her daughter shone brighter than the stars outside, a perfect convergence of both essences. The queen reached toward the image, her voice trembling. That child. It's the bridge. The voice whispered softly now. The cycle completes through her. The lattice remembers its first breath. Humanity's essence has returned. Suddenly, the chamber walls began to crack, light spilling through the fractures. The entire palace shook as the core's hum became a roar. The queen fell to her knees, clutching the orb. What's happening? The lattice is awakening, the voice said. The union of human and royal blood has restored the ancient code. The source is waking beneath your world. Visions poured into her mind. Oceans boiling with light, continents shifting, cities dissolving into rivers of pure energy. The planet was rewriting itself, no longer bound by the lattice's control. Every creature on the world felt it. Every life form heard the same whisper carried through their veins. Remember. The queen pressed her hands to her face, shaking. I tried to protect us, she said aloud. I thought I was saving my people. And then, through the chaos, she saw something impossible. Standing in the heart of the storm, her daughter glowed like a living star, her body surrounded by a sphere of energy. The human stood beside her, his hand on hers, and together they radiated a light that silenced the storm itself. The queen's eyes widened as she felt the pulse not just in the world but in herself. Her blood vibrated with a rhythm that wasn't alien. It was human. The voice spoke one last time, gentle and filled with awe. You see now, Queen of the Lost. You were never the gods you believed yourselves to be. You were humanity's memory. Forgotten, divided, waiting to be made whole again. Her tears fell freely now. Then what becomes of us? That depends on her, the voice said, and the choice she will make. The orb shattered, sending a burst of light through the chamber. The queen looked up, blinded, as a single image burned into her mind. The unborn child's heartbeat resonating with the core's light, each pulse echoing through time itself. And then she heard it clearly, the same whisper that once belonged to the core now speaking through her daughter's voice. Mother, it's not the end. It's the beginning. The queen gasped, her hand clutching her chest as the entire palace began to lift. Stone and crystal dissolving into streams of light that spiraled upward toward the sky. And as the storm of light consumed the empire, she realized with a trembling heart that the impossible vision she just witnessed wasn't prophecy anymore. It was already happening. The world had not seen dawn for 7 days. The skies shimmered in waves of gold and violet as the lattice bent and reformed itself, pulsing in rhythm with the heartbeat of the unborn hybrid child. Across the empire's cities, temples cracked, the sacred crystals no longer obeying the priest's chants. The old order was trembling, not because of war or rebellion, but because of faith itself. In the holy city of Cairo, the high priests gathered in the sanctum of purity, a vast circular hall where for centuries they had declared what was divine and what was forbidden. Now, the air inside was thick with panic. The lattice lights no longer responded to their prayers. Their symbols, once glowing with celestial order, flickered with strange, human-like warmth. The high priest Aaron struck his staff against the floor. "It is corruption," he shouted, his voice echoing. "The lattice has been infected by human resonance. The princess carries blasphemy in her womb." But outside, the streets told a different story. Thousands of alien citizens stood in silence beneath the trembling sky, staring upward as beams of light rippled through the clouds like veins of a living creature. They whispered her name, the princess who had been declared infertile, now carrying life. Some wept, others prayed, and a few simply fell to their knees, overcome by awe. Rumors spread like wildfire. The queen had witnessed a vision that shattered her faith. The core itself had spoken, and the child she once sought to erase was now rewriting creation. The people didn't know what to believe, but they knew what they felt. The air hummed with new energy, soft and alive, as if the planet itself was breathing through them. By the fifth day, the priests could no longer contain it. Citizens stormed the lower temples, demanding to see the princess. If this child is truly of the source, they cried, let us witness the miracle. Within the inner palace, the queen stood at her balcony, watching her people's cries rise like a tide. The humans stood behind her, silent, watching too. They will tear themselves apart, she murmured. He looked at her. Or they'll finally wake up. She turned sharply, her expression weary but still regal. You don't understand what faith means to them. Our empire is built upon belief that we were chosen by the source. And now that belief is collapsing. If they see your child, if they believe this union is divine, the entire order will fall. He met her gaze without fear. Maybe it should. The queen's face softened, a shadow of sorrow crossing her eyes. You speak like my daughter now. She's right, he said. Your people were never chosen, they were connected. You turned that connection into control. The queen sighed, turning back toward the horizon. Control is all that ever kept this world from destroying itself. Below them, the chants grew louder. The palace guards were struggling to contain the crowds now. The people no longer feared the sacred walls. They wanted truth. They wanted proof. Inside her chambers, the princess lay surrounded by flickering strands of light that moved like living silk. Her pregnancy had accelerated. Each day, the heartbeat within her grew stronger, resonating with the lattice itself. When she closed her eyes, she could feel the world listening, its consciousness stretching across the stars. The human knelt beside her. They're calling for you, he said softly. For the child. She smiled weakly. They're not calling for me. They're calling for hope. Do you want to show them? Her hand trembled as she touched her abdomen. If I do, the priests will call it heresy. If I don't, the people will think it's fear. Either way, something breaks. He took her hand gently. Then let it break. Before she could answer, the chamber doors burst open. A group of priests entered, flanked by guards. The high priest Aaron stepped forward, his eyes burning with fury. By decree of the sanctum, he announced, you are to surrender the unborn creature. Its existence defiles the source. The queen entered behind them, her face unreadable. Stand down, Aaron, she commanded. He turned toward her, trembling. You saw what I saw, Majesty. The visions, the rewriting of the lattice. That is not creation. It is desecration. The queen's gaze hardened. You mistake change for corruption. Aaron raised his staff. And you mistake love for salvation. The air crackled. The lattice responded to his rage, pulsing red. But then, something shifted. The princess sat up, her eyes glowing with faint silver light. Her voice was soft but carried through the room like a current. Do you hear that? She asked. Everyone froze. There was a sound beneath the silence. Faint, rhythmic. A heartbeat. It wasn't just in the air. It was inside them. The walls, the floor, even the staff in Aaron's hand vibrated in time with it. The source doesn't speak through fear, she said. It speaks through life. Aaron stepped back, his mouth trembling. That's impossible. The human took a slow breath. No, it's human. Outside, the crowd began to roar. The palace gates were opening on their own, responding to the pulse. The people surged forward, not in anger, but in reverence. The hum grew louder, an anthem that every living being could feel in their bones. Aaron dropped his staff, falling to his knees. The queen turned toward her daughter, tears in her eyes. They're not following the priests anymore, she whispered. They're following you. The princess stood, her body glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Not me, she said softly. The life within me. And as she stepped out onto the balcony, the entire world seemed to still. Every voice fell silent. Every eye turned upward. In that sacred pause, the unborn child's heartbeat echoed through the air one final time, and the sky itself opened, flooding the world in light. For the first time in their history, faith didn't come from the temples. It came from the people. In the heart of a city built on sacred crystals, temples burned and banners of rebellion swept through the alien capital. The chants of the faithful echoed like thunder, drowning the sound of collapsing spires. The alien priests stood on the temple balcony, their luminous robes flickering under the crimson light of their dying sun. They called it heresy, the union of alien and human blood, the very idea that their ancient gods could be undone by love. But even their defiance trembled as the sky itself began to shift color, hues of blue and gold twisting through the atmosphere, like veins of a new creation pulsing over the world. The queen stood at the highest tower, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She had seen the signs in her dreams, stars rearranging themselves into patterns long forbidden, the same constellation her ancestors had erased from their archives. It was the mark of the old god's fall, and it had come to pass. Far below, the princess stood beside her human husband. Her hands trembled against her abdomen, where new life stirred. The palace guards had abandoned their posts, and even the machines that once obeyed the queen's will had gone silent, their circuits humming in strange rhythm with the unborn child's pulse. They fear you, the human said softly, not because of what you are, but because you broke what they believed could never change. She met his eyes, those human eyes, so small, so fragile, yet containing the strength of entire histories. They will destroy us before they accept it, she whispered. Then we give them something greater to believe in, he replied. The queen descended into the palace's lower sanctum, where the whispering core glowed faintly through its containment glass. The ancient AI, the one that had served their kind since before recorded time, was changing. Its voice, once metallic and absolute, now carried a heartbeat. You tampered with the child, the queen accused. You interfered. The core replied, correction. The human interfered with destiny. The bond you feared is rewriting the code of creation. The queen's breath caught. You mean, they are creating a new pattern? No, the core murmured, its tone almost reverent. They are restoring the first one. Outside, riots turned into mass gatherings. Alien citizens lifted their hands to the sky, chanting the name of the unborn child. For centuries, they had worshipped the idea that divinity was separation, that their perfection depended on purity. But now they saw two imperfect beings creating life where there should have been none. The alien scholars began uncovering ancient tablets, long buried by decree of the first monarchs. The inscriptions spoke of a time when their kind were not gods, but students of an older species, humans, who had taught them the meaning of growth through union. The Queen's Council demanded action. We must end this, one shouted, before the faith consumes the throne. Another argued, or embrace it and control it before it controls us. The Queen said nothing. She watched the holographic display of her daughter, standing beside the human, surrounded by followers. Their combined energy signatures, one glowing red, one blue, merged into a single frequency that the instruments could barely process. You see it, don't you? Murmured her advisor. The power to remake everything. The Queen turned away, her voice trembling. No, I see the power to end everything we built. In the silence of night, she met her daughter in the garden where the first peace treaty with humans had been signed. The air shimmered with auroras, living light born from the merged biofields of both species. Do you understand what you've done? The Queen asked. The princess looked up, her eyes reflecting both the alien glow of her lineage and the warmth of human emotion. I only did what you couldn't. I trusted the impossible. The Queen's hand hovered over her daughter's face. And when the impossible becomes real, it destroys belief. Or recreates it, the human interrupted gently. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The palace shields ignited, not from an attack, but from a surge inside the core. Every machine, every artifact of the old gods, began rewriting itself. Holograms flickered to life, not of deities, but of the first explorers who had once walked between stars, human and alien together. The crowd outside fell to their knees as the images filled the sky. The old gods were us. The core's voice boomed across every speaker, every mind. Not gods at all, but beings who forgot what unity meant. The queen looked up as the truth burned across the heavens, her tears catching the auroral light. The era of worship was ending. The age of remembrance was beginning. The old gods, their myths, their laws, their chains were dying before her eyes. Yet in their death, something else was being born. The princess reached for her mother's hand. "Now do you see?" she whispered. "What you feared was not death, but change." But before the queen could answer, the core's voice changed. Its tone darkened, became fractured, almost afraid. "Warning," it said. "Primary pattern corrupted. Unknown presence detected within the new life form." The human froze. "What does that mean?" he asked. The queen's eyes widened as she stared at the pulse within her daughter's body, a pulse no longer matching any known signature. "It means," she whispered, stepping back in horror, "something else is being born inside her, something that's neither human nor alien." The palace lay silent after the storm. Smoke drifted across the broken spires and shattered glass domes, carrying the scent of ozone and blood. The old banners of the alien gods had burned away, leaving only ash that sparkled faintly under the new twin-colored sky. In the ruins of the queen's chamber, the whispers of machines had gone quiet. Even the core, ancient, immortal, unyielding, was still. And in that stillness, a cry pierced the air. Not the cry of war, the cry of life. The princess lay upon a bed of light spun by the remaining healers. Her face was pale but calm, her hand clutching her husband's as their newborn child drew its first breath. The baby's skin shimmered faintly, shifting between the soft luminescence of alien lineage and the warm tone of human blood. Its eyes opened, silver and blue swirling together like merging galaxies, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. The child did not blink. It simply stared at the world, unafraid, as if it had been waiting for it. The human father could not speak. He only knelt beside them, tears slipping through his dust-streaked face. "She's alive," he whispered. But the word alive didn't feel enough. The healers, though trained to understand every known biology, couldn't identify her pulse, her breath pattern, her genetic rhythm. Everything about her was beyond what they'd ever seen. The instruments refused to record data. Their sensors shorted out, unable to define what she was. The queen entered quietly. Her crown was gone, her robes torn, her eyes red from sleepless nights. She stood in the doorway, watching her daughter cradle the infant. The air around them shimmered faintly, threads of light moving between their bodies, weaving through the cracks of the shattered floor like veins of energy reconnecting the dying palace. Slowly, the queen stepped forward. Each step echoed like a heartbeat in the silence. "She shouldn't exist," the queen murmured, not as an accusation, but as a prayer. The princess looked up, exhausted but radiant. "Neither should I," she replied softly. The queen reached out a trembling hand, touching the baby's cheek. The child turned its gaze to her, and suddenly, the light flared. The broken crystals in the room rose into the air, circling them like stars drawn to gravity. The queen gasped, feeling the warmth rush through her palm into her veins. Her mind flooded with visions, flashes of humanity's past, of her people's first contact with them, of the promise that had once bound the two species before fear had separated them. She saw her ancestors erasing those records, branding humanity as primitive to protect their own supremacy. She saw the truth that had been buried for eons. Her species was never divine. They were the result of union. Human and alien had once been one. The core hadn't created life. It had preserved its memory, waiting for someone to remember. The queen fell to her knees. The baby reached toward her, its tiny hand glowing faintly, and the queen's tears spilled onto the floor. "Now I understand what I saw," she whispered. "You were never a threat. You were the beginning." Outside, the world trembled again, but not in destruction. The old temples cracked open, releasing the imprisoned light stored within their walls. Across the cities, alien and human refugees watched as the skies turned from crimson to soft gold. The air tasted alive again. Seeds long dormant began to sprout through the ruins. Machines powered themselves not by command, but by resonance with the child's heartbeat. The core's final transmission echoed through every channel. The pattern has been restored. Evolution is choice. The princess and her husband stepped onto the palace balcony, their child in their arms. Below them, the people, alien and human alike, gathered in stunned silence. They saw not a goddess or a ruler, but something they had all forgotten. Unity made flesh. The human raised his hand. "No more borders," he said quietly. "No more gods. Just life." The crowd erupted, not in chaos this time, but in harmony. A sound like the universe exhaling, millions of voices merging into one. The queen joined them, standing beside her daughter. Her voice was soft but carried through the air like a vow. "Let this be the new dawn," she said. The child opened its eyes again. For the briefest instant, every creature on the planet, human, alien, machine, felt something stir inside their chest. A pulse, not of fear or command, but of connection. The queen smiled through her tears. "She's not one of us," she whispered. "She's all of us." And as the first light of the new sun broke across the horizon, the child laughed. A sound like wind and music and memory. The old world ended in that sound. The new one began.